And with that, let's go on a little trip to the Ozarks, shall we? Here's our featured artist for February Herald winner.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Yesterday, when I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues here in the gallery after we had hung everything, and it was mentioned about my artist talk tonight, he said, "Be sure to thank us when you give your talk." I think that was, I think he was being facetious, you know, that was a little tongue-in-cheek sort of thing, but I do want to acknowledge the team. Archway is a team, and that includes, you know, other people, vendors that support us, our publicity consultant that helps us, so it's a team effort, so I really appreciate that. Now let's talk about the work a little bit. You know, landscape painters tend to start where they are. One can think of Monet, you know, and his fascination with the ponds at Giverny where he lived, and all the other locations sort of around him. And that's kind of where we start. We start with what's available locally, and we move around until we find something that's more interesting or captivates us more. So there's no rule book that says, you know, that I can't paint something, you know, even on another continent, for example. So this show presents work that is the result of recent travels and hiking trips that I've made in the Ozarks of Arkansas. I grew up close to mountains, and I miss them, and there aren't any around here, so I've scouted out the ones that are close enough to get to. And so the Ozarks of Arkansas are like a long day's drive, really, from Houston. So I decided to focus. I've painted water a lot over the years. In fact, if I'm known for anything, it's for my paintings of the still, calm waters of Southeast Texas. And so I decided to focus this exhibition on the waters of the Ozarks, specifically the Arkansas Ozarks. And so there are some characteristics of the water there that is different from the water that one sees, you know, in the landscape around here. For one, the water is clear. That has great implications for painting. It's generally moving, unless it's a small pond. Okay, if it's a river, if it's any kind of waterway at all, it will have some movement in it. And that goes to you know, like the paintings that you see here with these cascades and waterfalls. That's something, you know, that I had never painted before, and was really challenged to do that. And then there's also the rocks. Okay, I love the rocks. I really love the rocks. And what I discovered is that painting rocks is a bit more challenging than I, you know, would have guessed. And I can talk with you in detail about that later if you want to know. And the other thing, a couple of other things, the deciduous trees. I'm not fond of painting pine trees. You know, I've painted as a landscape painter long enough to say that it's not something I like to paint, and there are lots of reasons why that. Well, you know, I live in Houston, and you know, we're in the middle of the moon with piney woods, so that's kind of a problem, isn't it? But what the Ozarks does offer is, you know, just deciduous trees everywhere, and you know, that's great. You know, especially, you know, in the autumn when they put on just a spectacular display. And then there's another thing that comes to mind, which is the opportunity for vistas. okay? Because the Ozarks are, you know, up and down and mountains and hills and valleys, and there's the opportunity to have incredible panoramas at one's disposal. And, you know, you can see then where the water is going. You can see the pathway, you know, that it is taking. You can see its relationship to the land from some distance. So this exhibition, you know, includes my kind of signature close-up view, but it includes these paintings, which you know, give a broader, more distant view of the landscape. Let me continue with my cheat sheet. As I said, these paintings produce you know, different characteristics, and some of the questions that I asked myself about the waters, you know, that I encountered there is, how was it contained? You know, what's around it? You know, what's in it or on it, on its surface? You know, and what color is it? And if you look around the, you know, at the paintings, you can see that it's contained many times within these rocky, you know, enclosures. There aren't a lot of places where, you know, where it meets ground or earth. It's surrounded by the deciduous trees, which gives the opportunity, you know, for paintings like these, you know, with beautiful colored leaves, you know, falling in the autumn. And because it's clear, it has different color properties. You know, this painting back here under my nameplate, you know, that water was really that turquoise. And you don't see water that color, you know, in this environment. And just then a few final notes about myself. I grew up on the eastern grassy plains of New Mexico. It was mostly barren plains. And I went to, I studied architecture at Texas Tech a long time. How long ago, you might ask? Well, I'll just say that it was so long ago that we didn't have computers. We didn't have software. Okay, so to produce perspectives of our building designs, we had to learn how to construct a perspective from scratch with parallel bars and triangles and all the rudimentary drawing instruments of bygone eras. And we also had to take a lot of art classes, which architecture students today don't do. And one of the courses that we were required to take was a full semester of watercolor painting. And this was fine art watercolor painting. This wasn't, you know, the studies for producing renderings of our buildings came later. This was early on, just learning the medium, watercolor painting. And the first painting that I did in that class was a painting of a landscape with the ground, and there was a little pond in there, and then there was a windmill, and this was all silhouetted against a glaring, blazing West Texas sunset. It was kind of corny, actually. But yesterday, when I was standing in this room at the end of the day alone, you know, for some reason that painting my memory of that experience and that painting came back to me. And that reminded me that when people typically ask me, when did you start painting? I say, well, I started I usually say, about 2006 is when I started. That's when I say that I started landscape painting. But, thinking about that painting yesterday, I'm thinking, maybe I need to reconsider that and say that I, started landscape painting back in. Okay, so that's all I've got to say. Thank you all very much for coming out, and if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer any.